At the start of the story, a group of children is crawling on the sand, using rods to search for landmines. One boy manages to defuse a mine by opening its cover and removing the fuse. However, another boy opens a mine, triggering a massive explosion, which kills him instantly. These children are, in fact, German prisoners of war. Although the war has ended, millions of mines laid by the Germans remain in Denmark, posing a threat to the locals. The responsibility of clearing these mines is given to these young captives. Soon Danish soldiers begin training the boys, teaching them how to find and defuse mines. The boys are sent, one by one, into rooms with mines for practice. The first boy carefully removes the fuse and successfully defuses the mine. The second boy is visibly scared, his hands trembling, but he also manages to complete the task. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. However, when the next boy goes in, he fails, and the explosion kills him instantly. This instills a deep fear in the group, as they realize any mine could end their lives. After the training, 11 boys are taken to Denmark's western coast under the supervision of Sergeant Karl, who despises the Nazis. Although the boys are only 13 or 14 years old, Karl views them merely as tools for mine clearing. He points to the beach and informs them that 45,000 mines are buried there. They must defuse 6 mines each per hour if they wish to return home after 3 months. The boys set to work, crawling slowly with rods to detect the mines. On the first day, a boy named Ernest defuses a mine without any harm coming to anyone. That evening, they stuffed grass into cloth sacks to make beds and talked about what they would do once they returned home. While one boy expressed doubt that they would ever return, most of the others remained hopeful. The conditions were harsh, with the boys barely receiving any food. Ernest saw a little girl playing and spoke to her, but her mother quickly took her away. Ernest, however, managed to steal a piece of bread from her toy, which he later shared with his brother. At night, Karl locked the boys in a wooden house, securing the door with planks to prevent them from escaping. The following day, the boys worked even more slowly, weakened by hunger. One boy, Schumann, asked Karl when they would get food, but Karl coldly responded that no German would be fed first. Karl added that he didn't care whether the boys died from the mines or from hunger. One night, a boy named Helmut, unable to bear the hunger any longer, removed the planks from the door and snuck out to find food. The next morning, Ernest fell ill with fever and dizziness, but despite his condition, Karl forced him to work. Another boy, William, also became sick and vomited. As Schumann moved to help him, a sudden explosion ripped off William's arms. William screamed in agony, crying out that he wanted to go home, while Ernest desperately called for help. However, a nearby woman simply closed her door, and Karl, despite hearing the cries, remained inside. Ultimately, William's screams were so heartbreaking that even Karl, hardened as he was, couldn't ignore them. He went outside and administered a shot to ease William's suffering. It was then that Karl realized these weren't Nazi soldiers, but young boys caught in the horrors of war. Karl rushed William to the hospital, but he died shortly after arrival. Overwhelmed with guilt for keeping the boys hungry, Karl later stole bread from the military base and left it at the boys' door. The boys eagerly devoured the bread, having gone days without food. When Karl met with them, he assured them falsely that William was slowly recovering. This news brought immense joy to the boys. However, with William gone, each boy now had to defuse 8 mines per hour. Despite this, they continued to work, hopeful about returning home. One night, Danish soldiers, drunk, attacked the boys. Although some tried to fight back, the soldiers threatened them with guns. Just as the soldiers were about to shoot, Karl intervened, warning them that if the boys were killed, the soldiers would have to clear the mines themselves. Reluctantly, the soldiers left, though they reminded Karl not to forget the atrocities committed by German forces during the war. Karl replied that the boys had no knowledge of those events. The next day, Schumann discovered a double mine, one planted to kill whoever found it. He warned everyone about this danger, but no one seemed to hear him. Werner, after successfully defusing a mine, joyfully celebrated, only to be caught in a double mine explosion moments later. Ernest, devastated by his brother's death, ran toward the remains, but there was nothing left to save. Karl, now witnessing Ernest's immense grief, injected him with a sedative and stayed by his side, realizing again that these were not soldiers but helpless children. Afterward, Karl told Schumann about William's death, to which Schumann responded that he already knew. He explained that all the boys wanted was to finish the work quickly so they could go home. Though he doubted that day would ever come, Karl, uncharacteristically, reassured him that things would soon improve. That night, Karl left the door unlocked and brought more bread for the boys. The following day, Karl allowed the boys to rest and play football on the beach. For a brief moment, things seemed to be getting better, until a sudden explosion killed Karl's dog in an area where mines had supposedly been cleared. Karl, enraged, believed the boys had deceived him. He punished the boy responsible for checking the area, forcing him to act like a dog and fetch a ball while barking. Karl's resentment toward the Nazis, who had killed his family, resurfaced with full force. Later, a woman came running to the boys, begging for their help. Her daughter had wandered into a minefield. The boys rushed to help, with Schumann lying on the ground to search for mines. When Karl arrived, he feared the boys had escaped, but he found them working together to save the girl. Ernest walked straight into the minefield, lifted the girl, and handed her to Schumann before tragically stepping on a mine and losing his life. In the end, the boys completed their task, defusing all the mines on the beach. 3 months later, 6 boys were ready to return home. As they loaded the mines onto a truck, an explosion killed 2 of them. The 4 remaining boys, now joyless, were sent to another minefield, realizing the promises of home were lies. Karl, devastated by this, attempted to negotiate their release but failed. However, Karl managed to create a fake order and smuggle the boys to the border, where they were finally freed. Though Karl's actions were technically wrong as a soldier, his humanity triumphed, easing the bitterness of war.